Good evening. Excuse me. Most of you probably don't know me. I'm Kevin Fisk. Just want to tell you a little bit about me. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 16. I fulfilled a 6-year commitment and went to work in the oil fields. And I worked on the drilling rigs for the most part for about 14 years. I injured my knee, had to do something else. Since then I've roofed, I've driven a truck. I'm a small business owner. I have never held public office, and I've never run for public office. I would prefer not to now. The problem is our country is in such a dire need of leadership, honest leadership. We have no true representation in this country right now. We have a bunch of bureaucrats in Washington making the rules for us, and they don't abide by the same rules. We need to get representation in Washington. You can't truly represent someone unless you walked in their shoes. You have to be able to walk in their shoes, live the life they live, and face the challenges they face every day. When I criticize the welfare system, which I do a lot, my mother was on it for 22 years. And I saw it being used and abused my entire childhood. So I kind of figure I'm a little qualified to criticize the system. And, nobody can represent everybody, but I think that I can probably represent the large block of people. I have to take issue with one of the congressional candidates. I'll name her, Sherilyn Eager. Every time she talks, she comes up with this argument that we need to send experienced people to Washington. Haven't we been doing that forever? I mean, when have we not done that? Look what the experienced people have done to this country. Look at the damage they've done through hideous legislation, unconstitutional legislation. They're strangling us with their regulation. I mean, what have the experienced people done to better the country? They've done virtually nothing. And I believe that if we don't change course and fast, we're going to end up in a situation where it's irreversible. And I think that has to be done in 2012. We need to. I was originally going to talk tonight about illegal immigration and Social Security, but I changed my mind kind of at the last second because those are important issues. But from my perspective, from a common sense perspective, I think they're easily solved. And one of the things that I decided to talk about instead was the truth and accountability. I know a couple of the other candidates have brought up accountability. We don't hold our public officials accountable for the things that they say and the things they do. We kind of brush it under the rug. And then come election time, they get all patriotic and they get all fiscal responsible. And, we just let it go. Well, those days have to change. Those of us who are not big Orrin Hatch fans are quick to point out his, I don't want to say failures, but we're quick to point out things that we disagree with when he takes the wrong side of an issue. And I think it's equal that the Senate candidates and the gubernatorial candidates and the congressional candidates also hold their fellow candidates' feet to the fire and kind of point out difference. Because the only way I can separate myself from the other candidates is if I do like a compare-contrast. So one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to bring up something that happened on January 14th. We were at the Utah Eagle Forum, and one of the Senate candidates, Chris Hare to be exact, we were asked a simple question, a yes or no question. Would you vote to raise the debt ceiling? He said yes. Everybody else said no. There is no excuse to raise the debt ceiling. There is no situation in which I would ever vote to raise the debt ceiling. I don't care if you can't pay the interest on the debt. If you can't pay the interest, then cut enough of your government giveaway programs so that you can. If you have to put the non-essential government employees on unemployment, then do what you have to do. But there is no situation in which we should be raising the debt. Every penny you add to the debt is absolutely stolen from the next generation. We hear a lot of these arguments for, voting this bill and that bill and this area. Oh, we have to help these people. When you have true values, values are black and white. You don't compromise values. When did it become okay to do the wrong thing in the name of compromise? When did it become okay to steal from the next generation so that you can compromise. When did that happen? Did I miss something? Is it now okay to steal because you're helping this person? I think we need to hold our officials accountable, and we haven't done that. One of the candidates, I'm going to name Dan Lindquist, considers himself a conservative. But if you look at some of the legislation that he's voted for, I'm not so sure. He voted against SB 61, which was a program that would have allowed homeschooled children to participate in extracurricular activities. These parents are paying into the public school system. Why can't their children participate? They're paying for it. In 2009, he voted for SCR1, which was a guest worker waiver program that they wanted to get from the federal government. Doesn't sound very conservative to me. And then he voted for SB 225, which was a massive expansion of the CHIP program for immigrant children. And then a year later, in March 2010, he voted to repeal it. In March 2011, he voted for HB 477, which was, a lot of you recognize, it was the bill where government legislators would be able to keep their personal conversations on state-owned equipment private from the citizens. That's not much for transparency, as far as I'm concerned. And then 2 weeks later, he voted to repeal it. He seems to change his direction whenever the political wind flows that direction. That's not leadership. We need leaders. We need people who can go to Washington and stand their ground and not give in to the Republican and Democratic establishment. We have too many liberals in both parties that just cave in. A perfect example of that is we picked up a lot of seats in the House in 2010. We didn't pick up conservatives. We picked up Republicans. One of the first signs of that is one of the first things they did is they caved on the budget and they caved on the debt ceiling. That's unacceptable. When we vote for a Senate candidate in 2012, we need to make sure that we actually have a conservative. We don't have any more time for moderates. We don't have any more time for liberals. We have to vote for people who are strong enough to go to Washington and stand their ground. And like Jacqueline said, I think it was Jacqueline, to be a roadblock, that's good. Most of the people on my block think that if Congress is getting nothing done, that's good for the taxpayers. I don't know about your block, but that's how it is in my country. And if all we can do is be roadblocks, then that's leaps and bounds above where we're at right now. One other thing I'd like to bring up before I run out of time is another one of the candidates brought up the idea that we have a sovereign state. Is Utah really a sovereign state? We're overrun by illegal aliens. Illegal aliens. Our businesses are being strangled by federal regulation. Every dime we take from the feds is they're just keeping us under their thumb. All the money we take from the feds, it just keeps us more and more under their thumb. We don't even have anything to say about our public lands. I know that's brought up. We can't even be responsible enough or trusted enough to run our own public lands, and we're a sovereign state. This is Chris Herod's idea of a sovereign state. I would have to argue that if we send someone like that to Washington, I mean, he's already wanting to raise the debt. That'll happen. He thinks we're a sovereign state. If you have a sovereign state, what do you need to do to fix it? I mean, is he really going to put forth any effort to get our sovereignty back in Utah? Doubt it. Doesn't look like it. So, anyway, I think you need a strong conservative in Washington, and as far as I can tell, we don't have one. And I'd be proud and honored for you at least to give me that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, you had your chance. Now you have to hear one of my questions.
Okay.
Given your background, it sounds like you have a lot of blue-collar experience, working class guy. And would you say that you are a representative who could better represent working class people than those who are intellectuals and experienced in law and politics?
Absolutely. I don't think anyone can represent the working middle class unless that person has been in the working middle class. Because, you know, most of these politicians, they don't know what it's like to dig through a coffee can, roll up a bunch of pennies, and go to the bank and get some money to buy milk. I mean, a lot of the working middle class, at least when they were younger, have had experiences like that. You know, I used to have to get up 3 hours before work to catch the bus so I could be on base on time because I didn't have a car. I mean, how many of these politicians in Washington have actually experienced the things that most middle class people have experienced? I'd say very few. There may be some, but very few. I don't think we need these people with these Ivy League educations screwing up the country. They've been screwing it up for decades. They've had their turn. Now it's our turn. We need other middle class people, other regular Joes and Marys off the street to stand up and run for Congress. And I think that is the only way we fix the country. Because like, what was it, Mr. Wallach said, if you continue, the definition of insanity is to continue doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. If we keep sending the same losers to Washington to keep screwing up the country, we are never going to fix it.
There's a lot of complex legislation goes through the Senate, and they put all kinds of different features into it. What kind of education do you have that will help you to be able to comprehend the intricacies of the kind of legislation you'll face?
Well, what I need to comprehend is the Constitution. I need to comprehend the Constitution. One of the people running for Canada, you know, Ron Paul, he's got some things that I disagree with, okay? But he's got a lot of good ideas too. And he said that when he goes through these 3,000-page bills or whatever, he just goes through them. And when he finds something that's unconstitutional, the whole bill's gone. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it should be. If it was that way with Congress right now, we would all have sovereign states. The states would be running themselves, which is what it's supposed to be like. The states are supposed to be self-governed, and the federal government is supposed to do nothing but be like a moderator to settle disputes between the states. That's all the federal government is supposed to do, that and national security. So, yeah, I think if we got legislators in there who just look through the bills, when you find something unconstitutional, just throw the whole thing out and let them start over on it. And I think you'd probably end up with a lot shorter bills. These 3,000-page bills, that's just preposterous. We need Congress to regulate themselves. We don't want them to regulate us. They need to regulate themselves. They need to get these bills down to something that's reasonable that the average person can read and understand.
I've heard you talk about the other candidates, and I think there's a sentiment of going against Hatch. I haven't heard your comments. What are your feelings about Hatch? Are you okay if he comes out of convention, or would you? I'd just like to hear your comments on that.
Senator Hatch has been a long time. The dinosaur has got to go. But the thing is, at the end of his term, he will have been in 36 years. He has done a few good things. You've heard, you know, a few good men. The Marine Corps got a few good men. Senator Hatch has done a few good things. I have nothing against Orrin Hatch. He's a really nice guy. I've met him once. But I have issues with Senator Hatch. And Senator Hatch is totally establishment. He ran, when he originally ran, he ran on kind of a term limits kind of perspective. And a lot of these people have done that, and then they renege down the road. Senator Hatch has to go. He's one of the establishment that's causing part of the problems. He votes right in line with the Republican Party 93% of the time. That's not leadership. That's being a follower. We don't need any more followers in Washington. We need leaders. And I would like for Hatch to be a leader and resign. That's how he can show me he's going to be a leader.
Senator Hatch was the original sponsor of the DREAM Act, which would allow the children of illegal aliens, if they went to college for 2 years, or if they served honorably in the military, to get on a path to citizenship. Where do you stand on that?
illegal aliens, they call them illegal aliens because they're here illegally. I don't, we as a nation have had a long practice of allowing people who are not citizens of the United States but have citizenship in other countries to become members of the military. I don't know if any of you know that, but if any of you have ever been in the Navy, I've never been in the Navy, but I'm a Marine, I've been on ships. The illegal immigration situation is a really hot one for me. I don't propose giving illegal aliens any benefits, period. No DREAM Act, no welfare, no free schooling, no free health care, nothing. I mean, if you guys go to my website, you'll see I take a pretty strong stance on illegal immigration. But no, the DREAM Act is one of those pieces of bad legislation that should have never even been proposed, much less considered.
Is there anything that you can do as a candidate to get Orrin Hatch to be involved in the debate?
No, Orrin Hatch is above us. He truly is. When I first started this campaign, it was suggested to me that I contact the delegates and try and get town hall meetings. I had like no luck. Nobody wanted to meet with me. I'm not important enough. But one of the delegates said something to me that really struck a chord. He said, and I quote, "I hate Hatch. The last time I saw him, he referred to me as one of you people. He told me, you people just don't understand how things work in Washington." He said, that just chapped my hide like nothing before. But, we do understand how things work in Washington. I think we all understand it pretty well. We just don't like the way it works. The way it works has to change. It has to work a different way. But, Orrin Hatch, he's just way above us. He's not going to attend anything that we are going to be invited to.
How are you funding your campaign?
My wife and I are a one-man, one-woman show. We have no staff. We have no fundraising. We have her business that we're trying to get off the ground, and we're trying to use that as fundraising. But, like I was telling a lot of the other candidates, I don't go to a whole lot of the Lincoln dinners. I can't afford that. I can go to one or two here and there. I don't have $500 to spend to show up at a Lincoln dinner, or $2,000. That's what some of these cost. They just ream the candidates big time. Yeah, I can't afford any of that. I'm just a guy, I don't have bags of money from political campaigns that I've been, filling up for 30 years like Orrin Hatch and the rest of these establishments have. So I'm doing it myself with just whatever I have. You done?
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you.